A suspect is now under arrest in the assassination of a senior Russian general in Moscow. The Kremlin is calling the death a terrorist attack and is vowing now to punish Ukraine. The top general was killed yesterday by a bomb hidden in a scooter outside his apartment building. His death comes a day after Ukraine's security service leveled criminal charges against him. ABC News chief foreign correspondent Ian Pannell joins me now. Ian, it's good to see you. This suspect is described as an Uzbek citizen recruited by Ukrainian intelligence services. Russia's federal police published footage of his interrogation. What do we know about the suspect?
Yeah, that's right. He's a 29-year-old Uzbek citizen. The video of the interrogation was basically handed over to Russian state TV, who's been broadcasting excerpts of that interrogation. I mean, he clearly appears to be under duress. During that interview, he says, I came to Moscow on the instructions of the Ukrainian special services. He says that he bought the scooter and the bomb materials some months later. He placed them near the general's house, and they claim he detonated the device remotely. When asked why, he says he was offered $100,000 and a European passport. Now, I'll leave it to others to decide whether or not it's credible, but I think there are some question marks, at least, about how rapidly this happened, the fact that he's an Uzbek citizen. The Kremlin certainly has record of blaming others for crimes perpetrated, and it certainly suits the purpose of the Kremlin. I think that this appeared to have been solved quite so quickly. Phil?
Yeah, and Ian, this general was in charge of Russia's chemical, biological, radiation protection forces. What more are we learning about him, and what do you make of the response from the Kremlin?
Yeah, I mean, interestingly, he was under sanctions by the UK government here in London, but also by the Canadians and others, because Ukraine lobbied charges against Kirillov, and they were pretty much echoed by some of their allies as well, that he had ordered the deployment of chemical weapons, in particular this choking gas, which was first used in the trenches during World War I, that they were deployed into these trenches. It causes people to start to suffocate and forces the soldiers out of the trench, at which point, of course, they're gunned down. That is a breach of international chemical weapons conventions. It is a war crime if indeed that's happened. The Ukrainians say that they found him guilty of that on Sunday, but as I say, the Europeans have certainly accused him and his troops of being guilty of this specific unit, of being guilty of those crimes, and that's why this was carried out. So in other words, the Ukrainians are not denying that they've done this, but I think there's going to be some severe doubt about whether or not this particular person was the perpetrator.
Right, and while that's all sorted out, Russia's top state investigative agency is vowing, of course, to punish Ukraine. So what can we expect in terms of retaliation, as we already see attacks on a near-daily basis?
Yeah, great point, Phil, because, look, how could things be much worse for Ukrainians? They have 50% of the power output that they had last year, which was already beleaguered, which means they're now in the middle of a bitter winter. Many homes are without power. They're unable to heat themselves. They're unable to cook. And many people are relying on generators, which are now overstretched. You have Russia advancing on the front lines. You have nightly attacks by drones, by these glide bombs, which are basically old Soviet weapon systems that are put on a GPS system that then allows them to be semi-targeted missile attacks. And this just does not stop night after night and even day after day across Ukraine. Now, we all know what the next worst option is. It's a tactical nuclear weapon. I think there are some severe question marks on whether or not this is something that the Kremlin will do. Now, we've seen they demonstrated that they have these medium-range ballistic missiles, these nuclear-capable missiles, and they used those in Dnipro a few weeks ago. But they also notified the American government beforehand that they were about to do that. In other words, they're demonstrating that they're getting ready to do something without actually showing that they actually have the will to kind of carry it through. Now, never say never, right? Never underestimate the Putin government. But I think it's unlikely, and I think if you ask most ordinary Ukrainians, they will tell you that life is bad enough already. We're well over 1,000 days of this war. It's been brutal. People have been forced from their homes. People have been killed. Children have been kidnapped. It doesn't get much worse than that. Phil?
No, more than 1,000 days. It's hard to believe. Ian Pannell, chief foreign correspondent. Ian, thank you.